One of the great things about starting this channel and having an opportunity to discuss comics in this fashion is the fact that I get to really look at the comic book industry as a whole, and by doing so, I read a ton of comics that I normally wouldn't know about or have heard of or gotten my hands on before. Now, I've been reading comics for at least 2 decades at this point, but they were always comics that I personally sought after, or ones that I knew that I would enjoy. And so one of the things that I have actually enjoyed a lot about this channel is the fact that I read a lot of great stuff that's been coming out, but I also read a lot of awful stuff that's been coming out. And I think that's actually one of the aspects of this channel that I like the most, is the fact that I get to have that juxtaposition and that I see that difference between a top tier level comic and something that honestly deserves to be put in the trash. And I guess you could say that, you can't really have something good without having something of its equal and opposite, which is bad. How do we objectively know what is good without something to oppose it that is so bad for you to actually realize, man, this is fantastic? And I think that's what I've been noticing as I've been reading a lot of different comics throughout the past year or two, is the aspect of when you read a really, really great comic, you can pinpoint and understand why it's great because you've read the muck and the mud of what comics shouldn't be, or how not to write a comic or produce a comic or draw a comic. And so you can see those differences between something that really works and something that doesn't. And so with that being said, I wanted to mention 3 things that, in my opinion, make a comic great. And these are just subjectively what I believe to be the aspects of why I enjoy the comics that I do. So leave it in the comment section below if you guys disagree or agree with my next 3 topics. Number 1, characters. Characters are so important within a comic book because it will allow you to get an understanding for who it is you're reading. You really get an understanding of what is this person going through? What is their story? What is their dilemma? What is their hero's journey, if you will? And dialogue plays a large role in that. I always talk about with my friends over at Comics Elite, verisimilitude. Is the dialogue that we're reading understandable? Does it sound like this individual would actually be saying those words or have that type of thought process? And when you develop a character that is so original, but also so real that that character has qualities that you can resonate with, there is nothing better. Now, I'm not saying that every character has to be a perfect image of the reader, because clearly I love multiple different characters within the Marvel and DC universe that I have nothing in common with. But a lot of those traits and a lot of those characteristics are human in nature, or they're aspects of life that we all go through. So though I may not relate to the character on a personal level or understand what that character is going through, I can at least understand that those traits are human characteristics, or qualities of or sufferings of life, or things that we understand as humans on an individual basis or on a human basis. And even on a personal basis. So those things that endear us to a character as to why we become so infatuated with them, I think I love that the most about why characters are so important in these comic books. For example, if you look at Wolverine, I'm not a 5'2" short, hairy, muscular dude with adamantium bones and a healing factor, but I understand his suffering as he went through government programs to try and create him into this weapon. I've never been created into a weapon, but I have joined the Marine Corps, and I do know what that looks like. And so there are little aspects of things in my life that I can maybe relate to Wolverine. I look nothing like him, but those qualities I can still understand on a certain level. Same thing with Silver Surfer. One of the great things that makes Silver Surfer so, the word I'm looking for is compassionate. We feel this empathy and compassion towards Silver Surfer because one of his biggest things is that he feels alone. He's looking for his passion. He's looking for this higher calling than what he is given on his world as he is as Norrin Radd. Silver Surfer looks for this higher calling and is wondering what else is out there in the world. And those aspects of that character everyone can understand. Same thing with X-Men. X-Men plays to the aspect of these characters not feeling like they fit in, not feeling like the world is accepting of them. And so that's why so many people love those X-Men characters, because these are characters who feel like they're outsiders. And most comic book readers have felt that way for a while. They're nerds or geeks or dorks and don't really fit in with the popular crowd. And so the X-Men speak to them on a personal level. Number 2, art. Comic books are a visual medium. I cannot stress this enough. The artwork is important and maybe the most important of a comic book. Artwork can portray so much in a book that words sometimes just can't. When you're trying to express an emotion on someone's face, or you're expressing through color the type of mood that you are trying to give the reader and allow that reader to feel, sometimes with the color or even the paneling, the different paneling of the comic book can also instill a sense of maybe fear or excitement or concern. There's so many different aspects that you can play with that you can tell a visual story through the art. And that is what I think is so important, is that even if you were to take away all the dialogue from a comic, take all the caption boxes and all the text bubbles and everything out of there, you should still be able to understand the story through the art. Now, sometimes that isn't true, and there are moments where the story is a little bit more in-depth and sometimes convoluted, where the artwork doesn't really have the opportunity to tell the story, but that's where the talent needs to come in. I think the talent of the artist also needs to be addressed here in the art aspect of things, because the reason why I was picking up comics off of the rack when I was 6 or 7 years old is because I saw the artwork of Mark Silvestri or Michael Turner or Jim Lee, like kings within their industry, gods amongst men. These guys really created that aesthetic that a lot of us younger 90s readers were picking up from the racks, from our local comic shops. And so the art needs to play a particular role in terms of the talent associated with it when it comes to how good are they at portraying anatomy? Do their backgrounds really encompass where they are? Like, does it look like they're drawing a house, or is it a blob on the side of the road that I'm like, what is that? You have to be able to see what it is that the artist is trying to portray. Same thing with fight scenes. They need to be dynamic. They need to be able to give you a sense of, I can feel every one of these punches, or I can sense the kick coming from across the page. The artwork itself, I think, needs to be infatuating, where you become immersed into the story because you look at the talent and the skill behind the cross-hatching or the inking or just the detail in general. And I think you almost find a lot of pages of comic books to be artwork. I mean, there's a reason why interior art goes for so much money, because they are paintings. They are art. And so by seeing these different pages, you get the understanding. You really see the talent behind these artists. And if you mix those two things together, the talent of an artist and the visual storytelling and their capability to visually tell a story, you get a near perfect comic book. There's nothing better than seeing those two things collide. And I think it is really a masterpiece whenever you see something like that come to fruition on the pages. There have been books before that I've looked at, particularly Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X series. One of the things that I love the most about it is that I can just look at those pages for hours and try and understand the inner workings of how he was trying to draw all the different scientific experiments and the musculature of Wolverine and that figure. There's so many different aspects of why that comic to me is just a masterclass in art. And everyone else is going to be subjective, of course, but when it comes to skill and talent objectively, these larger creators have that talent to go with the visual storytelling medium. And finally, number 3, concept. So this is actually going to be a bit controversial because I think most people would say that plot is probably the most important, but I would actually argue that concept, the actual theme of the overall book, is much more important, at least for me. Plot can be as basic as, hey, it's a revenge book. It's about a son who wants to get revenge for his father's death. Something as simple as that, but told in a setting or a concept that is otherworldly, can be fascinating. A writer who's able to create brilliant characters, a writer who is able to write great dialogue in a conceptual setting that is maybe otherworldly, or in a conceptual setting that has never been seen before, or that is maybe a new aspect or a new way that we can look through something, that is beautiful. And I don't necessarily think that the plot of the book needs to be some convoluted, deep-rooted political commentary on something. Now, I won't say that storytelling isn't important and that the actual plot of something isn't important, because of course that is what we have been missing from a lot of our art for the past, decade, is a lack of storytelling. But I do think that storytelling needs to be coherent. I think it needs to be understandable. There needs to be some sense of verisimilitude. And if there isn't a sense of verisimilitude in our world, then whatever world you have created through your concept or through your theme, there needs to be an understanding of that world. You need to make rules for your world or your universe for us to understand and come to a mutual understanding of the rules within that universe. And so that's why those concepts to me are so important, because those themes, those concepts that transcend a simple story, that is what makes these universes great. Another example is Warhammer 40,000. If you look at the Warhammer universe, the lore is extensive. And the concept behind having these genetically modified, space marines fighting off demons and chaos and aliens and all kinds of different things is such a fun, interesting, and in-depth concept. So I think that aspect of things really comes into play, that the concept of themes of the overall comic books or universe of whatever it is that you're describing or writing, I think that is sometimes the most important thing, where a story can sometimes be a little bit simpler and not as intriguing as your concept or theme. So like I said, I will most likely get some heat for my number 3. I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section. Let's have a discussion below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and I will see you guys in the next one.